All right, so I'm finally getting around to answering this question, and I think that it's a great question, and I think that a lot of people will be able to benefit from the response. And so, thank you for asking. About how do you generate your own happiness? How do we generate our own happiness? And the first thing that I'm hearing is that there's this reminder that happiness is subjective. Okay, so a lot of times it can be very easy for us to look at someone else's life and to see them experiencing happiness, and we fall into the trap of wishing that we could experience happiness in the way that they are, right? But happiness is subjective, which means that we are responsible for generating happiness in our lives. We are responsible for creating happiness in our own lives, right? That is my responsibility, that is your responsibility. So what that means is you have to make a decision to no longer place expectations on things outside of yourself to make you happy. So people, places, things, relationships, jobs. If you have a habit of placing an expectation on those things to make you happy, then you will always struggle with being happy. You will always have a struggle with creating happiness in your own life because you've placed the responsibility on something or in someone else's hands, okay? And then the second thing that came through is that you want to begin to observe your subconscious thought patterns, right? And so I was looking at my Facebook memories, and something that a status that I posted said that limitations are just perspectives, right? So if you feel that your happiness is limited, that's just a perspective, right? And what happens is that we have these subconscious thought patterns that play over and over and over and over, right? And we listen to them and we allow them to dominate our narrative, and then they dictate our experience with happiness. They dictate our experience with joy, with peace, with love. And so you have to begin to allow yourself to pause so that you can reflect, or so that you can identify what those subconscious thought patterns are, because then once you identify them, you can then choose to say, I give myself permission to let go of this subconscious thought pattern. So just an example for me that came up this week was I'm giving myself permission to let go of the subconscious thought pattern that says I need to get it right. I might have to do a part two. All right, so this is part two. So as I was saying, is that, so for me, a subconscious thought pattern, because that's what we were talking about, is you have to identify the subconscious thought patterns and then give yourself permission to let them go. And so one that came up for me, as I was saying, is I'm giving myself permission to let go of the subconscious belief that says I need to get it right. So keeping that in line with this conversation of generating our own happiness, with my example, what happens is that if I put this pressure on myself to always get it right, whatever it is, then what happens whenever I don't get it right? Then I struggle, right, with being happy. Then I'm no longer happy because I didn't get it right. So that's going to mess with my happiness, right? And that's because I put this expectation on myself to get it right. Once I get it right, I'll be happy. But that's not how it works, right? And so that's how you generate your own happiness, is you remember that happiness is subjective, and then you take responsibility for creating your own experience with happiness. And then you spend some time in meditation and solitude, whether it's going to the park and going for a walk, however you want to engage with meditation, or however you want to spend time in solitude, totally up to you. But you give yourself that space and the time to spend in solitude so that you can hear, so that you can observe. Because in meditation, what happens is that, we're not trying to quiet the mind, we're just observing it. And whenever we're spending that time in solitude and we're observing our thoughts, we're observing our mind, then we can identify those thought patterns. And then in that moment, we can take responsibility and we can say, like I said, this is just an example. This is how I take responsibility, right? But what I say is I'm giving myself permission to let go of this subconscious thought pattern or this subconscious belief. So I hope that helps. It's so important to remember that the power is in your hands, right? And you got it. There's nothing else for me to say, but yes, thank you for this question, and I hope that it helps. I feel like not only will it help you, it definitely helped me. I spent, a couple of days kind of meditating over the question first, and like I said, these thought patterns were revealed to me, and so thank you so much for this question, and I know that it will help other people as well. I love you.